But
Yeah, here we are. This is Evening Skews. As always, we begin with a dumbass report, and I mentioned it last week. I'm sorry we just keep circling back to Donald Trump for these daily dumbasses, but he really does make it so difficult to choose
what
someone else.
what we should do is act like it's not an accident, like it's a bit, like we're going to research the world for the world's biggest dumbass, and it just happens to be Trump. Like it's on purpose, as opposed to
Right.
we just can't come with anybody else dumber.
Yeah. So here's what's happened now. If you watched last Thursday's episode of the Skews, you know that me and Mark briefly discussed a brand new at the time article in the Atlantic that dealt with Trump's apparent lack of respect for the U.S. military, let's say, and like I said, on Thursday night, it had just come out, and a lot of what we were saying was, I don't know how they're able to keep ignoring stuff like this, but they kind of didn't, because it ended up blowing smooth up over the weekend and became just a whole thing.
Which they should have just ignored it. Like they ignore so much other stuff. Why I don't understand why they decided to dig in on and make it a much bigger story by issuing denial after denial after denial that are easily disproven. But I'm no politics genius. I'm just a guy on the internet.
Yeah, well, because you got to support the troops, Mark. That's the thing. And they're out here saying Trump's not supporting the troops, so he had to respond, right? And in typical Trump fashion, he ultimately responded to the allegations that he is prone to insulting the military by insulting the military. So here's the clip.
I'm not saying the military is in love with me. The soldiers are. The top people in the Pentagon probably aren't, because they want to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make the bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy.
All right, so I don't know. There's a lot of shades to this one, in my opinion. But
Yep.
why don't you start us off though, Mark? How you feel about this?
One, he's not wrong,
Right,
but he is full of shit.
right.
Because he's been the biggest bitch to the DOD as president ever. They get to drop the drone programs have gone off the rails since Obama ramped them up, but they've gone more civilian casualties, more bombs, more dronings. There was early in his presidency, he dropped that the mother of all bombs, had never been actually dropped before.
Yeah.
He dropped this huge megaton bomb to kill 16 dudes, and then Trump had this little Oval Office appearance where he showed it on a monitor and was really impressed, thought it was super cool. And they asked him about it, and he's like, "Oh no, if you approve the bomb," and he goes, "No, they just told me about it afterwards." So they'd given operational control of huge bombings to the military. The DoD was launching its own wars, and so he did this in 2016. He attacked Hillary from the left and a bunch of stuff. I mean, there was a famous column by Maureen Dowd in the New York Times during the campaign called "Hillary the Hawk, Donald the Dove," and I'm pretty opposed to Hillary's foreign policy views as well. But it was patently false. He was ever going to we're still in Syria, we're still in Iraq, we're still in Afghanistan. He campaigned on any of those wars. Well, maybe he's tried. I haven't seen it, but it's so. Yes, he's right. The DoD is a money-making operation. It is a jobs program for billionaire defense companies. Also, he's not doing anything to stop it. So
because that's the thing. To me, I know obviously the top brass, they've got a lot of influence where war and foreign policy and all that is concerned. Of course they do, but it's the politicians too that drive the bus. When we got into Iraq with all the weapons of mass destruction and all that, it wasn't generals standing on stage on TV every night telling people that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It was the politicians. And again, I know they have a lot of influence. I'm not saying they don't, but they follow orders,
they fired it was kind of the only outside of Colin Powell, Bush fired the head of the army, the general in charge of the army, because he testified in front of Congress they'd need 3,000 or 4,000 troops to stabilize Iraq after the invasion, and they wanted to try to get by with way less than that. So they fired him for being honest. So in that instance, the generals were like, "This is a bad idea. We shouldn't be doing this. If we're going to do it, we need way more dudes than you're saying we need, because this is going to be a big deal." And they were like, "No, we got it. We got it under control."
Yeah, and he also he, like he does with so many things, he very much talks out of both sides of his mouth where all this is concerned, because he was campaigning on and still talks about, like, we're not going to be in these useless wars anymore. We're going to get out of there because that shit is stupid. And, like, you know, that would be great. It would be great for us not to be engaged in any of these useless wars. But then he turns right around and he brags about how they have, according to him, eliminated 100% of ISIS has been eliminated because of his actions. So, like, you know, he's just saying all of the things at once, which is pretty par for the course.
Did anybody tell ISIS? Because
right.
we're doing fine, it seems like.
He said, this is the actual quote related to what I was just saying. He said, "But we're getting out of the endless wars. You know how we're doing. We've defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. When I came in, it was a mess. It was all over. They had it in a certain color on the map, apparently. All of ISIS. A year later, I said, 'Where is it?' And they said, 'It's all gone, sir, because of you. It's all gone.'"
He's playing a game of Risk over there, where he got the right roll of the die and took over ISIS.
Yeah, but he's like, it's funny, even when he's like bragging about the way he describes it, is like, all the map again. It was like, what happened to all that orange? Where's all the orange at? Like, you saved the world from the orange, Mr. President.
Good job. If he was actually pulling out, I wouldn't mind him. This is what Bush should have done in Iraq, is like declare victory and leave, right? But don't declare victory and then stay because you've done nothing. It's just like, you know, whatever. Okay.
Right. But again, though, yeah, like you said, it is a money-making operation. Of course, this shit, like you said, he's not entirely wrong about what he's saying. Like, a lot of these current conflicts we've been in have been profit-motivated and whatnot. A lot of people have gotten very rich off of them. Obviously, Dick Cheney and all his bullshit, very well documented. So it's like, that does happen. But yeah, like you said, like you're the president, dude. Like, you're the commander in chief. But also, okay, a couple other things about this story. Sarah Sanders got caught in a pretty big lie trying to cover up for Trump where all this is concerned, because she gave this heartfelt plea, saying she has sat in the room when the president had to make the most difficult calls of any presidency, when he had to let a parent know that their son had been killed in the line of duty. And that's a call no president wants to make. In those moments, I saw the president's true heart, and I saw his commitment to the men and women of our great military. But that's not a thing that happens, right?
No, you didn't find out your husband got killed in Fallujah from the president cold calling your house. They did. The army sends a person to your door to tell you in person with a chaplain, right? We've seen the movies where that happens. Like, it's not like it. I don't know, but anyway, so this wasn't some ad lib. She wrote this video out and delivered it as a statement, as a Twitter video, probably in conjunction with promoting her new book. But so then the reporter followed up. It's like, but that's not how people are informed about the deaths of their family members. First of all, that'd be really bad for any president to take time out of his day to be the first. I mean, people, they do consolation calls sometimes depending on the dynamic, but they're not the first call. That would be horrific. You set a call from the president after you've exploded into tears for a day or two, and then the president calls and says, "Thank you for your service." He died, whatever. But this president is incapable of consoling anyone. Can you imagine if they let him just, yep, Jimmy's dead. Sorry, later. And then, Yeah. And also, this Sarah Sanders, the book she's promoting has a whole thing in it where apparently Kim Jong-un winked at her and thought she was cute. So Trump made a joke about she'd have to go over and take one for the team. He was trying to pimp her out to Kim Jong-un. She wrote that down and put it in her book, and then she's still defending the guy who tried to get her to have sex with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, I see you, Kim Jong. Yeah, I see your style, your taste. He's a man of immaculate taste, that Kim Jong-un. Now, I know, as always, everything about it is just so ridiculous. And a lot of people were tweeting about Trump saying this, just baldly accusing, the upper military brass of inciting conflict for profit motives. And they were calling it an unprecedented situation for a president to be doing that. And then in return, a lot of people pointed out that Dwight Eisenhower had a very famous address where he warned about the potential dangers of the military-industrial complex in 1961. But that's related to a thing I wanted to bring up, which is that a lot of times, like, Dwight Eisenhower was a general. He was a soldier. He knew his shit. You know what I mean? And that's how it works with a lot of these guys. Not all of them. Some of them are hardcore hawks, but a lot of them are the ones who, you know, try to keep us out of wars and whatnot because they understand what it actually entails more so than, you know, a senator from Kentucky or whoever.
I mean, in that speech, Eisenhower has a whole chunk of it. I forget the exact quote, but it's something like every dollar used to buy a gun or a bullet or a bomb is money that can't buy, you know, a school book or bread for the hungry, right? That's how this absolutely should be thought about, but we don't think about it in terms of trade-offs for whatever reason. But Eisenhower also, I mean, this is coming off the heels of a campaign where JFK hit him from the right for we had a nuclear. JFK kept saying we had a nuclear missile deficit with USSR, and it wasn't true because once JFK got in and saw the actual intel, we had way more nukes than they did, and he wrote Eisenhower a letter of apology. But that was coming off a campaign where both sides were commie red baiting to such a degree that Eisenhower was like, this is a guy who approved the overthrow of the Shah of Iran in 1953, was like, this is getting a little too, we got to pull back a little bit. But we haven't pulled out of it. It's been ramped up ever since. We're campaigning now to do better and better and better on defense. It's like we're already the most powerful military in the history of the world by a factor of 30. I don't know how much bigger and better we can get.
Right. So we should probably say, obviously, this article incited a lot of controversy and debate, and, you know, the Trump White House has emphatically denied all of it. And other people have pointed out, like, all of the sources in it are anonymous sources, and then it got, like, confirmed by other outlets based on, like, other anonymous sources, and the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, in an interview, I think, with Fox News, one of the big news outlets, said that one of the main stories in it, which was about Trump canceling a visit to an American military cemetery in France from World War I, he canceled it because it was raining and he was worried about how his hair would look. Mm-hmm. And the editor-in-chief was asked about that and, like, basically conceded that maybe that wasn't true, that maybe it was, you know, it was genuine weather concerns and didn't have anything to do with his hair or whatnot. So there's, like, a lot of shit swirling around this story, and I'm not gonna lie, I mean, I'll just say it point blank, like, I just immediately believed all of it because it just seems like shit he would think, say, and do. Well, you know,
there's a bunch of famous incidents of him doing stuff that's pretty callous and cold to veterans and Gold Star families. I mean, like,
right,
shitting all over the Gold Star family and spoke with the DNC in 2016, right, calling McCain a loser for getting shot down a bunch of times. Right. There was the Navy, when the first military operation he approved, like 5 days into his presidency, where those 4 SEALs got killed in Africa, and he called the wife and made her cry because he couldn't remember the guy's name, and said, well, he knew what he signed up for. And then there was the other Gold Star family where he called and to console them, and they were complaining about how hard it was for them to get survivor benefits, and he promised to write them a $25,000 check out of his pocket, and then never did. And then the reporters asked about it like 6 months later. He finally gave him $25,000, which is just very weird. And anyway, so like it jives with what's already in the public record that no one
right,
is denied. That
right,
he did on camera a bunch. So
right,
and also, like, one of the reasons I was surprised it became a big story is, like, I don't know anybody whose mind it's going to change. Like, if you think he's a scumbag like we do, you're like, obviously he's a scumbag in private as much as he's in public. And if you think he's a big hero, you're not going to pay attention to it. So the fact it's been, I mean, the Biden campaign's did a good job of making hay out of it, I guess, is what's happened. But.
Right, and that's part of what we said about it last Thursday when it had just come out, and it was I very much assumed that it wouldn't really amount to anything because nothing ever amounts to anything with him. No. But I was also saying, like, this particular subject matter, I don't know how that's possible given how much weight they give to supporting the troops. You know, which again, you should support the troops, but like it just seems like all the most hardcore Republicans I know shouldn't be able to stand for someone outright disrespecting the troops in this way, but they did, you know, that's the thing, like one of the first things they did is what they always do, which is just call it fake news, you know, right out the gate. They just said, no, this ain't real. And like, that's the, you know, no pun intended, that's the Trump card that they have for literally everything. Like, it doesn't matter how damning something is or whatnot, because with their base, they just they play the fake news card and just say it's not true, and then everybody on the other side of it is like, oh, okay, I figured it probably wasn't true, and then that's just the end of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But anyway,
I can't believe, but it's just like, in 2016 this stuff worked, like the I'm the president who's going to stop reign in the DOD. Like, I mean, Bush campaigned on streamlining the Defense Department too, because the whole peace dividend thing, the Cold War in it, and that was one of the reasons they fired the Army guy for saying we needed way more guys in Iraq, is because they were trying to like make the Defense Department like move smaller and lighter and spend less and with less guys, right? So there was some sort of honest effort. It resulted in a lot of death and destruction because if you're going to have a smaller military, you should go to less wars, right? You shouldn't go to more wars with a smaller military. That seems like a bad idea in two ways.
Right. Another thing about this, and it's like this is one of those things that's like obvious, but I have to sort of step back from everything every now and then and remind myself just how insane everything is, especially where Trump is concerned, because like how many just regular ass people, your fuck up buddy you went to high school with, that's on pills, whatever, your fucking meemaw, anybody, just regular people. How many of them do you know who, when presented with a veteran amputee, would have the genuine response of, ugh, gross, nobody wants to see that? Like, it's
out loud? Nobody.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Almost nobody. Everybody knows some serious dirt bags, right? We all do. And very, very few of them, for anyone, would just outright say that, let alone the President of the United States. Like, it's crazy because it works in the exact opposite direction that it should work in. You know what I mean? Like, the standard of behavior, it should be the exact opposite for the president. He should be above everyone else. But he's like, just the degree to which he has lowered the bar, man, is like, it's easy to sort of not forget it, but like just get jaded to it or whatever because of, 4 years of this shit. But it's fucking crazy. Like, it's not that hard, like, it's not that hard to not do that, to not be openly, explicitly disgusted by an amputee who lost his limbs in a fucking war. Like, shouldn't be a difficult concept for anybody.
But also, it rings because like the dude came out of marketing, and we're talking about the military parade, right? He one of the amputees in the military parade. So this is a guy who chooses wives by how many magazine covers they got, and even when he hires guys for jobs, he talks about how they're straight out of central casting. He like look matters to him for stuff. So it doesn't like it rings true to me. I have no idea whether it happened or not. Obviously,
right. All right, well, okay, moving on. You talked about Sarah Sanders got a book coming out. Who don't got a book coming out? Like everybody putting out books, especially where Trump is concerned, and a lot of them say all the same things. Like every one of them makes him look like just the worst person on earth because, I mean, he is, but they're all like just sort of treated as expected, I guess. And the next hot book on the docket now is Michael Cohen's book called Disloyal. And he outlines and confirms in the pages of the book a lot of the things that people think about Trump with racism and whatnot. He's got him in there, quoting Trump in there, saying the only reason that Barack Obama was elected was fucking affirmative action and all kinds of shit like that. But Cohen does go out of his way, though, to deny the Steele dossier and because, he was included in that dossier over and over again, I assume, and also that the Trump campaign was heavily involved with the fucking over the election by the Russians in 2016. But other than that, it's all the same shit. He just confirms all the same shit everybody thinks about Trump already, basically.
Yeah, and first of all, fuck Michael Cohen. Do not buy his book. Do not give him a single dollar.
Right.
Because there's this stuff doesn't do anything now. You should have told us this in 2015, right? And also, I'm sick of these people, and reporters keep doing it too. There's like important information the public needs to know, and they save it for their goddamn book release. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing new in his book. he does throw Jerry Falwell under the bus, which I very much enjoyed.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, I'm glad you brought that up. That part is, God damn it, I'm trying to find that. The part about, in the story I read, they said it was a Reuters journalist who called Jerry Falwell to comment on it. So he said that, okay, so Cohen said...
The one where his wife's yelling in the background to hang up the goddamn phone.
Right, yes.
Jerry's drunk and wilding out again, Trey.
Right. But yeah, in the book he says that Falwell's endorsement of Donald Trump, who's a philanderer and all that, but his endorsement of him as the Lord's candidate, according to Cohen, was a result of basically blackmail on Falwell with like illicit photos and stuff involving him and his wife and whatnot. Yeah. And that came out.
He just sort of confirmed it.
Right, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been pretty good timing as far as that goes, since that shit's been all over the news lately with Falwell. Real stand-up guy, but he so Reuters journalist called Falwell Jr. about that part of the book specifically, and apparently in the middle of the call while Falwell is like denying it or whatnot, you can hear his wife across the room like yelling at him to get off the damn phone and stop talking to that guy and all this. Like, what are you doing, Jerry? Hang the damn phone up.
And Jerry was like, the reporter was like, yeah, so I took some pictures of my wife. They were topless. I didn't care. Who cares?
Yeah.
Then why'd you get a lawyer involved? Like you went and found Michael Cohen, because all the news reporting says like Cohen had connections in Miami where you could try to get these photos back. Since then, one of those, there are two guys involved. One of them was the pool boy that says they were all having sex in the same room. And the other one changed his name and went into hiding after Cohen got involved. So what, Jerry? Like, why did you go to Cohen to get these photos back if it was just your wife topless and no one cared? I don't think anybody would have cared about a guy taking topless photos of his wife if it's just the two of them and like, whatever. It's their business. Even if you run a Christian college, the Bible doesn't say you can't take photos of your wife naked and keep them for your own personal use. Yeah.
Now, it's one of the only things the Bible doesn't say.
They hadn't thought of cameras yet. They probably would have wrote something down about it, but
yeah,
no iPhones in 200 BC.
So yeah, I'm with you. Fuck Michael Cohen. Fuck his book. So moving on to the next thing, Kamala Harris was in an interview and was asked about the potential of an upcoming COVID vaccine, the possibility of it coming out right before the election, which is a thing that there's been rumblings of for a while. The vaccine may drop on November 1st. And when asked about it, Harris said, "I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about. I will not take his word for it."
Yeah. And then the media, working with the Trump campaign, trying to turn this into an anti-vax thing, which became really funny because they used the anti-vax framing for it. Because basically, one of the big anti-vaxxers arguments, if you go like, well, you should take a vaccine, is like, oh, so you trust big pharma and you trust the FDA, who they kind of control and run because they have the revolving door regulator thing. And you got to be like, no, I trust peer-reviewed science, right? But so now the Trump administration, Trump's an open anti-vaxxer, if you guys don't know. Like he thinks vaccines cause autism. He tweeted it a bunch of times, and so what they're basically saying is like, oh, so you don't absolutely take the word of big pharma and FDA? No. Sam, what Kamala said, I will trust peer-reviewed science. I will not trust big pharma's word for it. I will trust multiple studies, double blinds, and people who have competing motives to tattle each other if it doesn't work. That's what I trust. So.
Right. And yeah, this got brought up in one of the Q&A part of one of our recent episodes. People were asking about the vaccine and everything. And yeah, I agree with you. Like, trust the actual scientists. I mean, I agree with what she said, which is like, I'm going to have to hear it from somebody besides Donald Trump. It's going to be a credible source of information. It's like, yeah, absolutely, it should be. But I just don't like... I don't know. And of course it was always going to happen in this country and this year especially, but the politicizing of
COVID.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we'll get it off mic. But anyway, making the pandemic and the virus and the vaccine a like political talking point is just so fucking unfortunate, because it's like it should be the opposite. Like, whenever a vaccine comes out and peer-reviewed scientists say, like, this is it, it's safe, you can do this, the last thing we need is people on either side or both sides fucking throwing shit at the wall and refusing to get it because of dumb shit politics. But that's probably exactly what's going to happen, I think.
Look, the what I always say whenever any one of my friends who has a new kid, and new parents are always, scared, especially when it's their first kid. I don't have kids. You probably know more about it than I do, obviously. But like, you'll be like, well, I've been doing some research, and that's always a big red flag because like, you should not be doing your own medical research at your house
right.
on YouTube. But my thing is like, they've been thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, just ask your doctor. Ask your doctor if they vaccinated their kids. That's it. The first people who are going to take this vaccine are going to be frontline healthcare workers, and they're the ones who read the medical journals constantly. If all the doctors at Cedars-Sinai are taking it, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, well, if we're talking about just like vaccines in general, anti-vaxxers are one of the things that piss me off the most. One of the like conspiracy or whatever you want to call them, one of the fringes of society that piss me off the most because it's just it's so dumb to me because like I don't know, they take it for granted completely that we don't all have polio and smallpox and shit. You know what I mean? Like everybody used to die. People were dying all the goddamn time back in the day. Like disease is a major problem, and these like revolutionary breakthroughs that allowed us to conquer them. The idea that people are like, oh no, it's all just a bunch of bullshit because they want to turn your kids autistic or whatever. It's like, well, what happened to polio then? And if you're saying that like they do work, like they are effective, but also they'll make some of your kids autistic or whatnot, like for what? Why? Like what are they doing with all those autistic kids that they're creating in a lab while they're also eradicating polio? Like, how is that supposed to work?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. It's never made any sense to me. And it's also tremendously selfish because you're like, well, my kid's healthy; they don't need a vaccine. Okay, but the reason you need to get your kid vaccinated is because they might be fine getting measles or mumps or whatever. They might survive it, come out of it okay. But there's a bunch of kids who can't get the vaccine because they're compromised. So what you're saying is, you're fine with your kid being a Lincoln and Shane that gives it to a kid it kills, and that's the part that's really like it's man. You think about like how far we've slid in this country. Like there was no polio vaccine came out, it was paid for by the government, and everybody got it. Nobody questioned it. It was not a big deal, and everybody had access. My mom still has the circle scar on her arm. That was the downside of it. You got like an MMR vaccine gave him a circular scar. She still got it. She's 67 from when she was a kid. Her parents did not fight the government to get a religious exemption for whatever weird wellness cult she was in, which she wasn't. She was a Baptist, but to not get the vaccine.
Yeah, well, it's like I mean, it's like the whole thing with masks too. It's like you said, it's like it's very selfish because it endangers others because of your bullshit, and it's the same thing with not wearing a mask. It's just the whole like the scourge of anti-intellectualism and anti-science and all that persists in this country. Is just drives me up the fucking wall.
It's a confluence of a couple different things. One, the internet gives us all information at our fingertips and allows people to communicate and theorize, right? But the thing is, information is not expertise. Information combined with experience is expertise. You don't have any experience. You don't know enough of what you're talking about to actually evaluate it. I say as myself, like I just read what other experts say and try to incorporate it. I'm not trying to like draw my own theories about shit I don't fucking know about, right? Same thing with there's that, and there's also people have so much free time. Like you look at like where the mumps and measles outbreaks have happened. It's all like rich communities in Beverly Hills and Marin County, California, in the Bay Area. It's like these pockets of people that have 20 hours a day to fuck off and do nothing and treat their kids like projects to perfect, and just to like do their own research and come up with their own theories about stuff and spend all their time on these wellness message boards where they radicalize each other. And it's just like, just ask your doctor and do what your doctor says, man. They went to school for a long time, Think less.
Yeah, and also like you said, it's all peer reviewed and everything. It's not any of this shit. It's not just one scientist, saying this is what you should do. And and obviously he's an expert and you're not. You better have a damn good reason for not believing what even that one guy says. But it's not one guy. It's the entire community of experts. They have to agree on shit. That's how it works. And I just don't understand the thought process of a person who has no training in any of these fields, thinking that they've got it all figured out and they know what's best over the entire community of people who spent their entire smart fucking people who spent their entire lives wrapping their arms around that subject. Just the fucking audacity of that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Imagine you bought a new car and your mechanic's like, you need to put oil in it. You're like, nah, I'm gonna go with chicken grease.
Right. Yeah.
I found one mechanic on the internet. I don't know him, but he has a YouTube channel. And he says I should use chicken grease instead of motor oil.
So, this is only very tangentially related, but you just made
You got a chicken grease in the car story? I want to hear it.
No, but it's sort of in the same ballpark. You just reminded me of this. It's an example of me kind of doing that, although it ain't the same. Anyway, here's what happened. A couple years ago, we went to get my son's hamsters, and we went to Petco, and we got these two little hamsters. They were brothers. They're from the same litter, and they were in the same little terrarium or whatever at Petco together, all cuddled up and looking cute and shit. And we bring it up there to the front, and we've also got the cage for them and whatnot. And the lady at Petco was like, "Is this the only cage you're getting?" And we're like, "Yeah, well, we thought they'd live together. I mean, look at them, And she was like, "Oh, no, you're gonna need another cage." I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, because they're both males, and they'll probably start to have some hostility towards one another. They might get aggressive towards one another if they're in the same cage." And in my head, and again, a Petco representative is not the same as an entire community of scientists, but still, in my head, I was like, "She's just trying to sell me another cage. That's what's happening here." I know
me out of another $12.
I know what's going on. She's trying to get that extra cage money. That's what this is about.
She probably, she gets a cut. The sales girl at Petco, she's working off commission.
Right? Yeah, gets 90 cents of that extra $12 I spent on a cage or whatever. But I was like, I think we're okay. Whatever, dude. We brought those goddamn hamsters home, and 4 hours later, that very night, I had to drive my ass back to Petco and drive another cage because they were trying to rip each other to pieces in the one we had in the house, just fucking each other up. And it made me sort of step back and evaluate myself a little bit. What did I think? Why did I think that I had it figured out? But this is how people treat their children's immune system and shit.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you make the same mistake with the cat and the cone?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
We probably can't tell that story because it's really gross. But Trey,
it's a lot.
We'll tell evening Skews after dark one night. We'll tell the story about.
No, that was the exact opposite. That time I trusted. We adopted a cat from a shelter, and she was a kitten, and she'd just been spayed. And we asked the question, and were told explicitly by the person at the shelter that she did not need a cone, because she was like, "No, cats won't do whatever. That won't happen. Don't worry about it." And so that's the opposite, because we just believed her. We took her at her word. We figured she knew what she was talking about. And anyway, my cat disemboweled itself that night, and it was like a goddamn Oliver Stone movie on the fucking pillow on the couch the next morning. But she lived, right? And she's in there, and she's just being fat and sassy, and she's doing great. But no, that was the opposite thing. So speaking of listening to scientists, the world's on fire. Everything's burning. Climate change is real. There's too many different environmental catastrophes happening in America right now to even keep track of. Obviously, California is on fire again. This time, at least one of them, I think, caused by a gender reveal party. So that's fun.
This is the second huge wildfire started by gender reveal in the last 3 years. There was a guy. I don't know if they caught the dude, or the public details have come out about this one yet, but the fire is not contained yet. So far, it's burned like 10,000 acres or some shit. A couple years ago in Arizona, this guy shot an explosive device with blue powder in it to reveal that he was having a boy. They filmed it. The footage went viral, obviously. Sparked a huge wildfire, burned 47,000 acres, cost $8.5 million to contain. This asshole got probation and is still employed as a border patrol agent. Obviously, that's a job he has because he's a psychopath. He'd have to pay a huge fine, which I guess was like $500 a month for the next 20 years or something, which $100,000 up front. So it ended up being like $240,000 or something. So that's the penalty he paid, which was like 5% of the damage he caused. So anyway, California, it looks like it's about to rain here all day, right? That's just smoke from clouds from fires that are surrounding us. The Bay Area is on rotating blackouts because it was so goddamn hot all weekend. Meanwhile, people need air conditioning for medical reasons right now because the air quality is so toxic. Iowa's underwater. Lake Charles, Louisiana, was wiped out by a hurricane. They've had no electricity for a week. Colorado had huge wildfires yesterday, and today it's snowing. Mm-hmm. It dropped 50 degrees in a day. So this is our new current reality, and no one wants to do anything about it, apparently.
Yeah, but Mark, you failed to mention that out here in California, if you look at the smoke emanating from these catastrophic wildfires, it's blue. It's a boy. Yeah, how about that? No, it's all a fucking nightmare, and yeah, everybody does just keep sort of, I don't know, putting their heads in the sand and pretending it's not real. So who knows what the hell's going to happen with that. Obviously, AOC hasn't. She got the Green New Deal, and which is reviled by so many other of her fellow Congress people, but that's just how that goes.
Well, Biden has adopted it as a large chunk of his platform, so that's good. We'll see if it's just like jerking off the left or whether it's actually going to mean it when he takes office. Hopefully, when. Because at least he's pretending to want to try. That's better than the opposite, I guess.
Right. Yeah, no, whenever the establishment party's platform gets like forcibly drugged to the left a little more, that's always a good thing in my book.
Yeah.
But who the hell knows? It's like it feels like it just keeps getting wilder every year with as far as like climate change and the weather goes, like just crazy shit all the time.
This is anecdotal as hell, but like mosquitoes are a huge problem in Los Angeles right now. I grew up in Southern Virginia where gnats and ticks and mosquitoes like will ruin your whole summer. Like it's just, but one of the upsides of LA is like bugs aren't really a thing here. You got cockroaches if you live in a shitty apartment, but for the most part, it's just like you got no real insect problems. A few flies here and there because it's a desert. Mosquitoes are eating you up right now, and I don't know why that is. It's warmer and muggier here, and the humidity's been higher, and there's a lot more standing water because of construction. But like I've seen people was talking about people online today. It's just I lived here 11 years, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, look, I don't know shit either, but I thought generally speaking, it was like the problem was moving in the opposite direction, meaning just as far as like bugs in general dying off, like in just waves. Because I know the bees, everybody talks about the bees, but not just the bees, like just the insect population in general. I've read before is like going off a fucking cliff, and obviously that's indicative of something. But it would make sense that the only species to move in the opposite direction would be the goddamn mosquitoes. So that'll be fun.
I mean, like they went from calling it global warming to climate change to try to help people understand that like it's not so much. I mean, the Earth is warming in general, but your specific location, it's more like shit's moving around to places it shouldn't be, right? Like Colorado gets snow, but it shouldn't be getting snow on September 8th.
Right. Well, no, that was a good move in my opinion, changing it from global warming to climate change. Because like I remember I went to college in Cookeville, Tennessee. Major metropolitan area, a bastion of enlightenment, Cookeville, Tennessee. And I remember once, Inconvenient Truth hadn't been out very long, and it was like March, which in Tennessee, in March, you don't normally see snow, and there happened to be this big cold snap and a big wet winter weather system moved through, and it snowed like 4 inches or something in early March, which again is abnormal in Tennessee. But in that like 3 days that snow was there, some motherfucker put up a billboard on the main drag in Cookeville that had a picture of Al Gore with a toboggan on and like his breath coming out, like you could see his breath, like he looks really cold. He's got like icicles hanging off his shit and whatever, and it just said global what now? Because it got cold. It got cold, so how can global warming be real? Because it's cold right now, so get the fuck out of here.
Can we talk for a minute about how successful this culture war propaganda campaign has been? Because, like, what is this one dumb motherfucker in Tennessee with a little bit of billboard money? What is his vested interest in keeping fossil fuels supremely profitable? Like, I understand if you're an Exxon, in the Exxon C-suite, I get why you would want to buy that billboard. But people, like, everyday average people get really mad at Al Gore for being like, "Hey, global warming sucks." It's very weird. I don't like the whole rolling coal thing. But anyway, look, any weather person will tell you that warmer temperatures will mean it will snow more. Because when it does get cold, there's more moisture in the air. They never told you it would never get below freezing again. But global warming means when it does get below freezing, there's now a ton of rain clouds because the ocean's evaporating. So, yeah.
So, well, apparently you guys like, what's that guy? What's in it for that guy? He's just like, he's just a fundamentalist zealot with all that type of shit because he does that. He does that in Cookeville all the time. My sister actually just texted me a couple days ago. He's got a billboard up right now in Cookeville that says "Practice socialist distancing." So it's like, social distancing is obviously commie bullshit, and he's telling all the college kids there not to buy into it. But this guy stays doing that shit.
Communists wear surgical masks. Yeah, the American soldiers on MASH, they were communists when they were doing surgery. The propaganda campaign of these people have connected fossil fuels with Americana to the degree that Exxon doesn't have to do their own propaganda anymore. This guy with billboard money in Salina, Tennessee, is doing it for them on his own. It's crazy. It's like I don't make any money off fossil fuels. Even if I believe global warming was bullshit, I'm not going out and like put up a billboard. Would I give a fuck?
Well, it's also like, like when Michelle Obama had her whole thing going on when she was the first lady, it became
vegetables. Vegetables are kind.
Exactly. It became un-American to like vegetables, which is just so on the nose from the rest of the world's perspective. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting like diabetes for Jesus over here, just getting as fat as we can to be as free as we can, or whatever the fuck. It's all so ridiculous. Oh, speaking of it's all so ridiculous, the cops are still at it. Shocker there. A couple of stories in the category of the cops be wild. Apparently, some cops in Utah shot a 13-year-old autistic kid multiple times after his mother called them to assist because he was having an anxiety episode. So they responded to that by shooting a 13-year-old over
4 times. I think
he's alive though. He's alive, but yeah, shot him 4 times. That's not the only.
Can we just say a good test to be a police officer should be: can you defeat a 13-year-old kid in hand-to-hand combat
without shooting him?
You got to go work at the post office.
Yeah, man, I know, and that's not the only headline out there right now related to cops. Well, actually, I don't know if they shot this guy, but cops going all copy on someone having a mental episode. There's a big story in Rochester, New York right now. It actually goes back to March. There was a...
this is pre-George Floyd, but they basically put him in George Floyd way.
Daniel Prude, 41-year-old black man in Rochester, his brother called the cops because the guy was mentally unwell and was having, again, some kind of breakdown or a mental episode. He was out in the street, butt naked, clearly not in a good way. And he, unlike the kid in Utah, did not survive his encounter with the Rochester police. They apparently covered his head with a spit sock and held him on the ground in a prone position before he stopped breathing. And he was declared brain dead and died a week later. Again, I know you pull up to a scene and you got a full-grown naked man standing in the street. It's like, that's a high-stress situation. Like, why does every high-stress situation involving American law enforcement seem to end with just some form of, brutality? Like, there's no better way to handle either of these situations, especially the 13-year-old kid. It's just, it's crazy. I wonder when they're going to start coming out with the articles about this 13-year-old kid, being a bully at school and having a pocket knife or whatever. retroactively demonizing him or whatnot, like they
Yeah,
always do.
he's he posted some pro Antifa stuff on his on his TikTok.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be the line. It's like I don't understand. I mean, obviously, it's like they feel the real need to control the scene, right? Which is like sometimes like a dude's being naked. Like I live in LA. There's a pretty big homeless population. I'll see people naked yelling sometimes. You know what I do is like they're naked yelling over there. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So like I understand they're supposed to come deal with the situation, but like let him be naked and yell until he gets tired. His brother talks him down. He'd be like, okay, whatever. If he comes at you like trying to fight you, tase him. So got to be another solution besides like putting a bag over his head and pressing him face down in the asphalt till he's brain dead.
I know. Well, that's the thing. That's what it always comes down to for me with every one of these stories. It's like they'll always try to justify it every which way they can, but like there has to be a middle ground.
Yeah.
Between like just letting him run wild and do his naked crazy thing and killing him with a spit sock or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a range of other actions that could be taken.
And what
should be.
The reason it's in the news today is because the entire police command staff resigned today, and pretty much not in disgrace, but because this thing happened in March, and they lied about it. They said he died of a drug overdose. Then the ME's report came out and said no, he died of asphyxiation. Then they got the body cam footage. Then they know about the spit sock and him being knee in the back till he couldn't breathe. So there'd been a cover up. They denied there was a cover up, even though it was covered up. And then the police chief and they basically were like double guns out the door. You guys don't respect us, so we're dumb. So we're really bad at our jobs, and we lied about this.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You said they resigned, but not really in disgrace. No, it was more like in defiance. Like they resigned in defiance of like, you know what? You don't appreciate us and the job we do, then fuck you. See how you do without us, kind of thing. Which is not the first time that's happened. Was it Buffalo? Right, also upstate New York. They were
the SWAT team after they knocked over the old dude and gave him.
They cracked that old guy's head open. They also like walked out on the job in protest.
They didn't resign from the department. They resigned from the SWAT team. So they basically gave up their extra duty, a little bit of overtime, as a middle finger to the public for criticizing their conduct. But so anyway, like this guy's double really responsible because he could have like set in motion not only fuck up the Daniel Prude case and he either fucked it up or lied about it. One of the two of them is true. 7 officers have since been suspended since the report came out. So after the body cam footage released, they did act. But then he now he with leaving no replacement plan or line of succession plan, he just resigns in the middle of citywide protest based on his own misbehavior, leaving nothing in place to try to quell the civil unrest. Which I understand he's in a bind there, but like you could have, like if you're going to resign, offering some contrition, some healing to the public, and be like, I was wrong, would be. You're supposed to be serving the community here, right? That's the whole point. The protect and serve is literally written on the side of your goddamn cars.
Right, but don't you think that's the whole thing here, right? I mean, obviously this is kind of speculative, but don't you feel like that's like sort of part of the whole thing for him? Meaning like, resigning right now. Like I said, like, oh, you think you don't need me? Well, let's see, Like,
So
you can't fire me. I quit. Have fun dealing with this shit without me. Like, it's got that air about it.
You could have given a public apology in a way that would have quelled you would have offered a release valve to the public. If you're gonna, you could have lied down on the altar of public fury. Instead, you lied down on the altar of your own self-regard. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to go out in the worst way possible. It's just like I don't know. He probably get his full pension. He's retiring as chief. So it's probably $250,000 a year he'll get for the rest of his life.
All right, well, let's see what y'all are talking about over here. Okay. I'll admit I don't know what this is about, Mark. You tell me if you do. Jim Gray says Trump is firing up people in North Carolina, bragging about his cancellation of the 1619 project and refusing. And then, of course, the comment is gone now into the H. Let me try to find. Oh, here we go. Cancellation of the 1619 project, refusing federal aid to schools who insist on teaching about slavery.
Yeah, the 1619 project's this big thing the New York Times came out last year. Basically, it's this like series of like historical essays and like op-ed pieces about like the real founding of America chases 1619 is when slavery became race-based and institutionalized, and makes the case that like a lot of legacy of slavery is a foundation of modern society. Now, historians have quibbled with little parts of it, but the general narrative is we are taught a lot of bullshit about, the history of the South and slavery and America's founding, and just seems to rectify that. And some schools have taken some parts of this to make curriculums. And Trump is in the theme of his like race-based white power candidacy is saying he's going to remove federal funding from schools that teach the 1619 Project, which he doesn't have the authority to do. And I don't know, he would be huge lawsuits. I mean, I thought Republicans are about local control for school districts,
Right. Becky Gurley says, I have a son who has mental health issues, but I won't call if he needs help after this. And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's how, black people have had that like internal conflict going on for forever, as far as like what, the idea of calling the cops or having to have the talk with your kids or whatever because of just the realities of the situation. And yeah, I mean, it's a goddamn shame that it needs to be that way with, the people that are supposed to protect and serve or whatnot. But, why would you feel comfortable calling him after something like that? It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I would. I called the police once in my life, and I felt bad about it because they arrested a dude who did not need to be arrested. He was just too drunk, trying to knock on the wrong door. And it's always one of those things where I don't think I would ever call them unless I needed a report for insurance and there wasn't actually a human being involved, or if I really felt in a dire situation. I had no other recourse. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people talk about the 1619 thing, and like why would they teach actual history? It's like I don't understand I grew up in the rural South. I didn't get only that version of it. I really didn't. I had some teachers that were worth a damn, but I definitely got a lot of that, like, war of northern aggression, states' rights type of shit, So, I mean, it's very much a real thing. Corey Forrester, the Buttercream Dream, friend of the show, y'all know Corey, but he grew up in a Civil War town called Chickamauga, Georgia, where the bloodiest 2-day battle of the Civil War, I believe that's right, the Battle of Chickamauga. So it's like very ingrained culturally there. And to hear him tell stories of how they taught it, it's fucking unreal, man. Just like straight up propaganda bullshit the whole time, and don't acknowledge any of the other side of it. So, I mean, that's definitely a real thing that goes on. And it's fucking ridiculous. Let's see here. We had Becca Mabry says, we had actual history, people might better understand why people are marching now. And yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, that's what happened. When you get taught that bullshit, you automatically lack any kind of appreciation for the fucked up reality of the history of race relations and everything in this country. Oh, hey, Mark, here's a fun one. Stephanie Satan, did y'all see Travis Tritt's Twitter meltdown over him looking like an old woman? Yeah, we did. Mark actually is the one who told me about it because he sent me a text showing the picture. So I'm gonna try to pull this up, Mark.
So he does look pretty. Travis is pretty Botoxed, but also someone Facetuned it, and it made him real mad. So he just took his actual headshot and ran through Facetune, not even one time probably, and it's just like made him look like a lady. And he started blocking everybody who was tweeted at him, including he was talking about, here's what the radical left will do to win. They have this propaganda trying to make me look like this is my. It's like somebody, a friend of mine commented, here's a quarter, and he got blocked. She got blocked for it, which really really made me laugh.
So here's a picture of it. Here's a tweet from the man himself. Said, just for clarification, more proof of the dishonesty of the left. Here's the original photo of me next to the doctored version that is being circulated by the left in an attempt to try to humiliate me. Exposing these frauds for the liars they are is so easy. But like, I don't know who did that to the picture on the right, but they are hilarious. Like that. Like who decided to go after Travis Tritt in that particular way? Like, That's the internet at its best, and probably worst right there. But that's so goddamn funny.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Isbell, this is somebody dug it up as an old comment, is basically asked him about Travis Tritt's politics and how artists shouldn't talk about politics, even though he's talking about politics by saying artists shouldn't talk about politics. But Isbell was like, well, Travis Tritt, was just a singer. He never wrote anything, so you don't have to listen to any of his ideas because he never had any.
Right. Well, okay. On that note, we might have talked about this a little bit before, but you said he's talking about politics in the act of even bringing this up but that's the part that I've never understood about that argument, the whole shut up and dribble argument of just stay in your lane, don't talk about politics, just do your make your movies or play your basketball or do whatever you do, but don't talk about politics. But every person who's ever said that, whether they're an accountant or a truck driver or whatever, they're being political on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have a platform or whatnot, but they go on there and just be political as fuck, but you're not allowed to if you actually have people following you for whatever other reason. Like,
yeah.
How does that?
We've talked about it before, but what does and doesn't get defined as politics in America is weird. Like, if you teach that George Washington never told a lie, that's apolitical. But if you teach that George Washington owned slaves and made dentures out of their teeth, then that's being political, right? That's political history. But if you kneel during the anthem, that's political. So you must stand and salute this jet flyover, during this military recruitment ad. So it's very, very, very weird. What gets defined as what basically right wing is mainstream in America. So Travis Tritt can say, "I respect the president and I love him, make America great again," and that's apolitical. But if Jason Isbell does a fundraiser for Doug Jones or whatever, that's artists getting involved in politics.
Right. So Bloggington Blakely says, why pay cops more when they aren't doing the job now? I guess there's people bringing up paying cops more over here. And this is something we've talked about on previous episodes. And like I said before, you kind of actually were the first person to sort of make me realize that, generally speaking, cops are not really as underpaid as they are made out to be a lot of times. Obviously, like the cops in my hometown, I'm sure they ain't making shit, but nobody in my hometown's making shit. But like cops in LA or big metropolitan centers can get paid very well. So yeah, I don't know about the argument of, we need to pay them more. We just need a different recruitment process and higher standards, and we need accountability more than anything else.
Accountability would be, that's the hard part. That's the easiest fix, and it seems like the most obvious one and the hardest one to achieve because of, police unions.
Right.
Like, it seems straightforward look, honestly, we've seen enough body cam footage. There are very few situations where killing is straightforwardly justified. If you kill someone in the line of duty, you should be on the verge of getting fired and have to prove affirmatively that you had to justify use of force, right? That should be a pretty bright line. A situation went bad and you did a bad job handling it, unless it's a straight up shootout, so.
Right. Well, yeah, we talked about this before too, but the idea of like licenses and that type of thing, being a doctor is an extremely high stress job, or being a surgeon. And sometimes people are going to die because you fucked up. But, if you were genuinely trying your best and, shit happens when you're a doctor. It's very high stakes, very high pressure. And we all kind of just understand that. But if you are fucking around and people die because of it, then there's a word for that. It's called medical malpractice, and your ass don't get to be a doctor anymore. And I feel like if you're a cop and, you kill somebody and you don't have a airtight, case for why you had no other choice, then there should be some actual repercussions. But
you're getting a civil repercussion. Like, there's not even something the same equivalent of a medical malpractice lawsuit, because qualified immunity means you can't sue a cop for killing you.
Right. So all right, let's end on a fun note. I'm so glad somebody brought this up, because you were also texting me about this over the weekend, and I very much want to hear you go in on this.
Nobody died to make fun of this.
Hefzibah Tolentino Ochoa said, "Did y'all talk about the fucked up at the fucked upness at the Trump boat parade where several boats sank?" And no, we didn't talk about it, but I'm so glad you brought it up. So, Mark, go in on the boat parade.
So, I lived in Texas for a long time, and so I actually saw on Facebook. I knew loosely knew someone who was at the Don't Float flotilla. The He's got at least book comedy shows around Austin. So Lake Travis in Austin is a dammed up river, but it's kind of a narrow lake, right? So there's a bunch of no wake zones, but Trumpers are like, they do put the pedal to the metal and do some donuts and shit. So they were going too fast in no wake zones. The big boats swamped the little boats and sank a bunch of drunk old fat people. None of them died. The fire department was able to rescue them. I think it was 5 boats. 3 boats sank, and 5 others had to be towed or something. 1 burned. It was a big mess. Pretty embarrassing, and it was a good laugh. There's some great photos of it. And I guess it shouldn't be too funny because the lake got polluted. Somebody's going to dig those boats up. But if you don't know how to use a boat,
right?
If you don't know how to use an AR,
right.
A bunch of suburban people have gotten into redneck shit they don't know how to use. Right. There's a real problem here.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, I grew up in a lake town, Salina, Tennessee, where I'm from. The only real thing we got going for us is we got a big man-made lake there called Del Hollow Lake, home of the world record smallmouth bass. But it's a, whatever. Salina absolutely has its problems, but the lake is unassailable as far as I'm concerned. It's heaven on earth, beautiful lake, and people go there all the time in the summer and do their boating and whatnot, but it's pretty much a redneck town, and that's where I grew up. So, I've been a part of multiple redneck yacht clubs. I have been out on that lake on multiple boats tied together with some of the drunkest, dumbest motherfuckers you will ever meet in your life, and no shit like this ever went on. It just, the concept of fucking this up this badly is so goddamn funny to me, and also just so kind of typical of his entire aura and his base's aura. It's chef's kiss, especially like this. Since nobody died. Fucking
yeah, they got their feet wet and they lost their coolers full of beer, and they're $250,000 boats. Rich people stop doing. It's like when you see a giant shiny F-250 being driven by a dentist parked all fucked up at the Olive Garden. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you don't know how to operate it, get a thing you know to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll.
It's
they'll
like
have that advice.
The McCloskeys in St. Louis when the chubby fucking personal injury attorney came out with his AR-15, and it's a right-handed AR-15. He's holding a left-handed pointed straight at his wife. This is the boat version of that.
Right. Yes, it is. And with that, we're out of time, but we'll be back in a mere 48 hours for Thursday's edition of Evening Skews. Thank you all for joining us. See you later.